If you're a mid-level to C-suite leader who wants to own your growth and figure out your next small, brave move to achieve your leadership goals, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Small Brave Moves podcast, a weekly deep dive on how to be braver in leadership and in life for exceptional results. I'm your host, Nicole Bianchi, best-selling author, certified master executive coach, NSA certified speaking professional, chief bravery officer, and tough talk expert. If you're ready to become a better, braver, and more authentic leader, let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Small Brave Moves podcast. Today, I'm joined by an incredible guest, Lindsay White, a sought-after leadership coach, people strategy expert, and founder of High Voltage Leadership. With 15 plus years in strategic talent management, Lindsay helps female-led small businesses build high-performing teams, develop impactful people strategies, and create cultures that inspire. As a coach, speaker, and facilitator, she's passionate about guiding leaders to align their leadership style with their values and purpose. In this episode, we'll dive into the tough talks that shape careers and cultures. Lindsay shares her own journey from corporate HR to entrepreneurship. Does that sound familiar? A little like mine as well. The bold choices that led her there, and how leaders can embrace the courageous conversations needed to drive real change. Get ready for an energizing conversation filled with practical insights and no-nonsense leadership wisdom. Lindsay, welcome to the Small Brave Moves podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you and talk all things leadership here. So I know we did this fabulous intro for you, but tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and something you're proud of creating.
Yeah. So my name's Lindsay White. I am a fractional HR partner and leadership coach for female-led small businesses. And what I do is help them build, grow, and ultimately lead really high-performing teams, create great workplace cultures where people deliver, and do that with a real strategic approach. So the talent is connected to their business plan directly. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, aside from the fact that I have raised 4 pretty incredible children, is actually building my own business, because I'm an accidental entrepreneur. Never had any intention of creating my own practice. And yet 5 years later, I'm still standing.
It's awesome. That's a moment to celebrate.
Yeah, totally.
So talk to me about, accidental entrepreneur. Give me a small, brave move you made to get here.
Yeah. So in August of 2017, I had worked for 10 years for a pretty significantly sized financial institution here in Canada. I worked in the HR, or we called it people and culture team. And I was a strategic business partner. I worked with senior leaders and C-suite executives, designing and then implementing people strategy. And I had been a part of the team for several years at that point. I was doing my work, and I had a 10-year career in this organization. The last couple years, I ended up working for a very toxic boss. So many of us have had this experience where we work for someone who is just, they're just horrific to work with. They're damaging.
Yeah.
And on a Thursday afternoon in August, I was in a meeting with her. She only ever reached out and talked to me when she was going to give me shit about something. I'd done something wrong. I don't even remember what it was that I'd done wrong.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that conversation, I recognized that I'd had enough. And I said to her, you know what? I think you're right. I don't think I fit here anymore. And this is actually really upsetting for me. So I'm going to go now. And I think we need to figure out a way for me to exit this business, because I'm not interested. So I quit my 10-year career in the middle of a meeting, and I shut my computer off and I drove home. I'm not sure I should have done that, but I did. Not sure I was in the right headspace to be operating an automobile. I drove home, and my husband said to me, like, what? I walked in the door and he's like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? And I was like, well, I think I just quit my job. And he's like, what? And so, being in HR, I was smart enough. I calculated my own severance, because here in Canada, if you lose a job through no fault of your own, and I wasn't walking away from 10 years without getting the severance.
Sure.
Part of that negotiated that they would pay for my coaching certification program that I was already enrolled in. And during that coaching program, I was challenged by my coaching peers. Why wouldn't I start my own business? Why would I not become a coach and consultant? And that changed the trajectory of my entire life. So, a small, brave move that resulted in a life-altering difference.
Okay, we have so much to talk about with this. So our histories, the parallel in our experiences is just it's so amazing. I was in HR as last role was a CHRO for about 16 years in two different Fortune 300 companies. And I too worked for a very toxic boss. And actually, the first 11 years of experience left and had the moving on conversation because I was working for a very toxic boss who made it a mission to take credit for everybody's
Yeah,
work or try to go find flaws in good humans
yes,
or get people fired, or
yes,
it was such manipulative
yes,
behavior. And I remember just like the calls I would get were just outlandish, and I'm
yep,
like, what is going on? And but yet she was so recognized and rewarded by the executive team. They had no like they just and I thought, well, if that's the behavior and performance that gets recognized, I've been here 11 years, like, that's just not
yep,
in alignment anymore.
no,
And I remember going in and having the moving on conversation, one of the toughest conversations because of her and that reason. And I actually scheduled that meeting with her and the CHRO at the time because I was scared she'd manipulate
100%,
something, right?
100%.
So I want to go back to your moving on conversation
Yep,
because that's powerful to be able to go in that moment, just to go, it's so clear. I know I know that staying here isn't an option. And I now have to think about what I need to do.
yep,
And so the 5 when I talk about the moving on conversation, it's the 5th of the 5 tough talks, right? Leading brave conversations and being able to recognize when a relationship, a role, a situation no longer
yep,
serves you, which is what you were in the midst of right there. And I'll tell you what, so many people aren't brave enough to have that
yep,
conversation and wait for somebody to do it for them, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, so first of all, clearly our circumstances have so many parallels, and isn't that interesting? Because high voltage isn't just the name of my business, it's who I am. I am a very
Yeah.
high energy, high impact human being. My
Yeah.
mother would say I'm a little intense. I'm cool with that. I'm not for everybody, and I am super cool with that.
Yes, yes.
But what has happened to me over the course of, a 25 or 30-year career in business is I have encountered particularly women who are
Mhm.
deeply threatened and unsettled by the fact that I am high voltage and that I am a connector, and that I am sharp and interesting and funny and I will figure it out and I am diligent. And so
Yeah.
I have had several bosses who have been deeply threatened and become very aggressive and but they're cowards. They don't do it in
Yeah.
public. They do it in behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this woman was not the first time I had faced this.
Yeah.
She was the 3rd or 4th. And what
Oh,
had recognized at that point is that I didn't have to tolerate that BS any
yeah.
further,
Yep.
right? So you can't do that to me because I simply refuse to allow that behavior in my sphere. And
Right.
so I put up with it for quite a long time. And the truth is, when I left, I went and had some medical tests done because I was incredibly burnt out.
Oh, sure.
I literally had no good things left in my body. So I had blood work
Mm.
done, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all at like chronically low levels. Like everything was in the red, except
Oh,
for iron, because I'd been taking an iron supplement because my doctor thought I was anemic, which I was. That was the only good thing left in my like I was she literally sucked the life out of me.
yeah.
And I recognize now I'm not down with that. You can't do that to me. I
Yep.
don't care who you are or how much money you make or how much power you think you have. I don't play that game. You
Yeah.
can't hurt me because I'm not picking up the cards,
Yeah.
right?
And that likely translates to the clients you attract, right? And into your business, the who you'll work with, who you won't. So on our side, the one thing I got really clear in when I started my business, let me pause for a minute and tell you the other parallel. So besides our HR is I had somebody have a conversation with me when I was exiting that CHRO role that said, well, why wouldn't you? The coaching conversation that you just talked about, which is that, well, why
Why
wouldn't you
wouldn't
go
you?
start the business that you have been talking about? Like,
Yeah,
it's time, go do it.
yeah,
And so being surrounded, right, in a circle, this one happened to be my husband, by the way, what a circle of people who are not willing to like hold up, who are willing to hold up
Yeah.
the marriage. They just go do it. And it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I go do it?
Yeah.
So I love that we both had somebody important in our lives that did that for us. But when I think, where was I just lost my train of thought now.
It's all right. No,
My gosh, I got so excited to tell you about the parallel that I was like, "Oh my gosh."
well, it's so funny. So 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go back to this organization. They wanted to
Yeah.
hire me as a leadership and executive coach, but they
Mhm.
wanted to hire me full time, and I wasn't ready to leave my business and just park it.
Mm. Yeah.
And in parallel to you, my husband said to me, "Why would you go back? Like, you quit. Like, you stopped working there on purpose. Why
Yes.
in God's green earth would you go back to that shitstorm?"
Yeah.
But I mean, bless their hearts. There's moments where we love them and then moments we wanna
Yeah.
throw mama from the train. But, like, they say things to us in those moments, and you're like, "Oh my gosh," because I was
Yeah.
agonizing about it. And he's like,
Mhm.
"Why would you go back? That's"
You're right. Why would you go back? And going back to the clients and the who we're attracting, the first of the 5 tough talks, which is the how we work, I got really good with clients about having this how we work conversation because I wanted them to know like, hey, if we're gonna work together,
Yeah,
I'm gonna challenge you. I
yeah,
am gonna hold here's how I'm gonna show up.
yeah,
And if there's something and we need to have agreement and alignment that that's going to work for you because if it's not, then we probably shouldn't. And I thought, and I'll never forget I had a client, you'll appreciate this a client that I had laid that and he nodded his head. Yep, 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 Nicole, we're all good. I get in, start doing the work. And it was a big coaching contract. And that only to find out that he was the problem. Like all of the leaders were like, he's
yeah, it's
not
this guy.
doing any of this stuff right.
Yeah,
Like he's the problem. So I go have the conversation with him just asking
yeah,
questions, not sharing all of that. And he looked at me and he was like, Nicole, you can't fix me. Like I am who I am. I'm not going to go. I just need you to go fix the team. And I don't care if my stuff's not in alignment. And I remember just sitting there in that moment going, well, then
yeah,
we can't be
sorry.
successful together. And I refunded the rest of his money and went about my way. I
Yeah,
said, I won't do the work. I won't.
no,
It's so out of alignment. And so
yeah.
I think it's interesting. Here you are 5 years in, right? Congratulations. And magnetically, it's like, how do we attract those right people who are
100%.
really willing to roll up their sleeves, energetically do the work, own their growth, and
Yeah,
come along on the ride, right?
yeah. I have a no assholes policy.
Yes,
I no
yes.
longer I had to for
Yeah,
many years, I had to work with assholes because
yeah,
you got to work with me, we could do it the easy way or the hard way, right? Like, up to you. We're gonna do the
yeah,
work. I'm your partner. Get her
yeah,
done. I don't work with assholes anymore,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and you don't have to on the
And I don't
outside,
have
right? You
to.
don't
I
have
don't
to.
need your money, right? I'll
Yeah,
go make money somewhere else. But in the
yeah,
same token, I also am deeply kind. And Nicole, I know that's a big value for you too,
yeah,
right?
it is.
If you want to show up and you don't know how and you're struggling with it, I am all in. I will double down on that. But if you just want to be an asshole, you can be like someone else will take your money. Like by all
Exactly,
means, feel free.
right.
But
Yeah.
no, I'm with you. I fundamentally can't do that work. It's I'm never going to be able to deliver what you want because I can't do that, right?
Well, and the true transformation, like whatever outcome they're looking for, you can't get there.
No, man.
There's too many blocks in the way. So talk to me about another tough talk that's been like a pivotal moment in your journey as an entrepreneur, high voltage leadership and the work that you do.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of a very recent one last fall. I was working with a marketing manager who I became really good friends with and I care about deeply.
Mhm.
But there was clearly something that was not working, and we were not getting the deliverables done in the way that I think was meeting my expectation. I'll just be honest about it.
Sure.
And we had a couple conversations about it, and there was some stuff going on. And again, deeply kind, deeply patient, always willing to work with people on what are we trying to accomplish? Why are we not getting there? What's going on underneath? But I had to have a very difficult conversation with that individual last fall and say, I'm going into a new time in my business in 2025, and there are things that I want to accomplish, and we're not making them happen now. So I don't think this is going to work for us. How do we continue our relationship because it's meaningful to me, but recognize that we're not going to work together? And that's
Mm.
hard because you do in a small business. You have
Yeah.
people on your team that you like a lot, But if
Mhm.
they're not delivering or your business grows and they don't keep up or their skill set is, not
Mhm.
aligned, and you have to have those crunchy conversations and
Yeah.
they're challenging and nobody likes that. Like nobody wants to do that. But man, you have to. And it's absolutely pivotal. I think that's the thing is that none of us want to have those crunchy conversations. We don't look forward to them. But when we
Mhm.
just embrace that they're necessary and also incredibly awkward,
Yeah.
then we just step into that space knowing it's gonna be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be negative. And I think that and it doesn't have to be like, it's not conflict. It's
Mhm.
productive tension. And in that space of productive tension, we can find good outcomes. And the good outcome in that one was we decided we're not gonna work together anymore. Her business is going in a different direction too. I didn't know that. I found
Yeah.
out something that I didn't recognize, right?
Mhm.
And so we were able to part ways as friends and still stay connected, but we're not working together anymore. And that's ultimately the outcome I wanted.
Yeah. What did you do to prepare for that conversation? What give us just a couple of moves that you made that would be helpful for us to think about as we're preparing for tough talks or
Yeah,
leading brave
yeah,
conversations?
good. That's a good question. For me, it was what do I want to get out of this? Like, how do I want to walk away? And not
Mhm.
just, the things, but the feelings. I want to feel like we really understand each other. I want to feel like our relationship, like our friendship is preserved. And I wanna feel, like, maybe a little bit sad, but also okay. Like, sad that something's
Mm.
coming to an end. I think we gotta recognize that. So that was the
Yeah.
first thing. I was like, "Okay, how do I want this to go? And then what do I need to do to be ready?" And just making sure that I had a few minutes before the conversation so that I could do what I needed to do to prepare, take some deep breath, be calm,
Mhm.
make sure that I was in the right frame of mind, that I wasn't bringing a bunch of my saboteur junk, that head
Yeah.
trash into the space. And then, I said to her sort of right from the start, I got to talk to you about something that's uncomfortable. I feel really weird about it. We're such good friends, and I want you to know that that's my ultimate outcome is that we stay friends. Like, that's more important to me than anything else, but I gotta talk to you about what is and is not happening here, and
Yeah.
something's not working, and we gotta talk about it. And she was like, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm so glad you brought it up because I know she's not good at it," right? Like, that
Yeah.
she is non-confrontational in that way.
Yeah.
So she's like,
Yeah.
"I'm so glad. I really and I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we don't recognize that people are just waiting for us to do that.
Yeah. Okay. I love the we call them conversation starters.
Yeah,
I'm going to share something with you that's going to be uncomfortable. And one of my favorite ones that I use is I'm going to share something with you that's uncomfortable. It's going to be probably uncomfortable for you. It's going to be
yeah,
uncomfortable for
yeah.
me too. So I'm honoring letting them
Yeah,
know, like, this isn't easy for me
yeah,
too. And I love that you went right to you named the outcome, like like your number one goal. My goal is for us to be
yeah.
stay friends. So then you know the work that needs to happen in the conversation that goes back and forth. So you shared that it was uncomfortable, you shared that you cared about her and that the friendship was the most important. What a powerful way, because I always talk about, gosh, the way we start the conversation sets the tone for everything, and so many times we're not thoughtful about it at all, and then it becomes this weird and it's like, "Okay, what's going on here? What's happening?"
Yeah, like, I don't get it.
You know what I mean?
Totally. I've seen
And
it.
my guess is because you have been the strategic HR business partner, you have been tossed into right? Similar to me, difficult conversation after
Yeah,
difficult conversation. And it's like because of the volume of what we had to deal with, the mastery came much quicker for us
sure.
because we had to deal with them or
All
coach
the
leaders
time.
on how to go have them all the time.
Well, okay, so one of the pieces of work that I've done, and this definitely has strengthened this muscle, is I have done career coaching and career transition work. So what that
Mm,
is, Nicole, but I'll explain to everybody else.
yeah.
I am the support when the manager is laying someone off, right? So
Hmm.
I am in the room or I'm one of the first people in the room when someone has
Yeah.
been told they've lost their job. One of the
Yeah.
top 5 shittiest things that happens to you in your life. Let's be clear, it's a trashy situation. So you have to be empathetic, but at the same time manage your own you have to have real self-awareness, manage your own emotion. And it
Yeah.
is a very difficult conversation to be having with people. First and foremost, they've just been told something super crappy. They're
Yeah.
scared. There and whatever range of emotions emanates from that. Like, some people get
Right.
angry, some people burst into tears, some people go catatonic, and you never know
Yeah.
which is gonna happen, and it could be all 3.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the most difficult conversations, and so you're
Yeah.
right, not only being present with the person, but also being present with the leader and
Yeah.
coaching them in advance. And sometimes they're like, "I'm so nervous, I was up all night, I was," and I'm like, "Yeah, I get it, but you're gonna have a job in an hour, so why
Yeah.
don't we just dial the me back just a little bit?
Yeah.
Let's use our emotional intelligence," she says tongue in cheek. "Let's lean into the fact that this is a very difficult conversation for the person in the room, and it's gonna
Yeah.
go on being difficult for several days or
Yeah.
months after."
Yeah.
Oh, you mean it's not all about me? No, it's not.
Well, it's not about them, and you know what I find is the more I tend to see a correlation between how much they prepare, not just the words, the intentional
Right.
words they wanna use, but also their mindset and energy when they do that, and they can get, a little bit of those butterflies because we all
No,
deal
for
with that with it,
sure.
right? Information that they can lean into the not that you're still not gonna have a little bit of that, but I find when
Course.
people don't prepare or they're just like, "I'm gonna be scared, 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 not do
Yes,
any of the prep work,
yes.
and then I'm gonna go in and speak off the cuff, and it's gonna be weird. I'm just doing everything I can to get through it." And that's when sometimes I have to almost, like, say, "I need you to stop talking. I'm gonna go ahead and take over here because somebody's gotta land this plane, and my co-pilot over here is not
In the
doing. I'm
middle
taking
of a
over control."
spiral, yeah.
Right. Like, because you didn't do the work that I asked you to do, right?
Totally. I mean, I think that's a great way to put it. Like, my co-pilot is losing it, so I guess
Yeah.
I'll land the I love the metaphor. But I think, that's the thing, right? And actually, I mean, it's very telling about your level of emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
because if you make that situation all about yourself, but you're not the one being laid off, that's a
Right.
pretty good indication you've got some pretty significant work to do.
Right.
'Cause
Right.
you're missing something. But yeah, I mean, I think, in the land of difficult conversations, being able and people say to me all the time, "How do you do that work?" Well,
Yeah.
I'm deeply honored to be
Yeah.
with someone in one of their most
Mhm.
difficult moments and
Yeah.
support them. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
fix it. I can't make it better. But
Yeah.
what I can do is I can be with them. And I
Exactly.
can support them in that moment and maybe even in an ongoing capacity, because it would
True.
depend, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those moments where we need
Yeah.
to lean in, right?
Uh, that's such a good one, Lindsay. I have to share with you. Not you won't be surprised, even though I wasn't a career coach, I was in charge of handling some reduction in
Sure.
forces, right?
Yeah.
And it was some of the first ones for the company. I'll never forget sitting across from somebody and showing up just as what you talked about. Like, okay, really,
Yeah.
because I just so deeply cared. I wanted them to feel that they were, that they were cared for during this
Yes.
process, right?
Yes.
The best of my ability with
Yeah.
everything in control. And the severance packages were good. Everything, all
Yeah.
the stuff was good that they were going to get.
Yeah.
But still, it was a very, the shock and the awe and the
Yeah.
family and this
Yeah.
and, all this. And I'll never forget my office phone rang and then it rang again and then it rang again, like three
Oh,
times in a row. And I was like, I remember saying to the gentleman, and his name was Steven, and I was like, "Steven, I'm so sorry. Do you mind if I step away from the desk or the
yeah.
table for just a moment? I'm concerned something's going
Oh,
on." And it was my home phone number, the home phone number I had grown up with, right?
no.
So it's my parents. And I pick up and I'm like, something's wrong. And I pick up the phone and I'm getting choked up right now as I'm sharing this.
Or
On the phone is my mom letting me know that my dad had been diagnosed with late stage 4
oh,
esophageal cancer, and she was devastated.
oh,
I mean, you can
oh.
imagine, like, what's going on. And so I remember just saying, "I'm in the middle of something. I'll be there in an hour.
Yeah.
Like, give me just
Yeah.
a few minutes to take care of
Yeah.
this, and I'm on
Yeah.
my way." And I remember hanging up the phone and I burst into tears because I didn't know
Oh,
what to do.
of course.
He stood up from the table and came over and hugged me and
Oh,
said and just like
what a moment. What a
right?
moment.
Like, it's one of those things, well, it's something that I've sent him cards over the years
Wow.
to let him know how much that moment meant to me, but I know, Lindsay, it's because the moments we create
Yeah.
before that, that allow, even if that phone call would never have came,
Yeah.
I know because of how we showed up and how we handled it, it allowed for him
Yeah.
to be in a place
Dignity.
where he right?
Listen,
Like, we're
that is beautiful. I have had clients on both sides. I have had clients that have been
Yeah.
treated like that, and then
Yeah.
I've worked with them, and I'm still connected with them, and I
Yeah.
know how grateful they are for the work. I
Yeah.
also have had clients that have been deeply mistreated by the organizations and their exit.
Yeah.
15-year employees that have been treated with disrespect and derision like they
Mhm.
didn't count, and I can tell
Yeah.
you the psychological impact of that is significant, and
Yes.
and it is devastating, and so I believe, and I think you probably subscribe to this too, leadership happens in the little moments. It's not
Mhm.
the big things, it's what you do in that
Yes.
moment when someone is told their job is disappearing, or
Yes.
when someone is given feedback because the presentation didn't go well, or when someone's told that there's a new software platform that's going to impact the way they work. That's when
Mhm.
leadership shows up. It's not in the big things, it's in the little
Yeah.
things that we make a difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I love that. That's such a good one.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, think about, and I love your take on this. I love your boldness around
You.
these crunchy
Thank
conversations
you.
because you're exactly right. And so, two questions I
Yeah.
have for you. The first one is I want our listeners to hear what a small brave move you've got coming up or
Yeah.
one you're going to be making business
Yeah.
related. That'll be the first one, and then I'll come back to you for the second one, the
Yeah.
finale.
So I love that question. And actually, it's super timely because I did some work last year and I created a new relationship with rest last year. I was hit pretty significantly with some menopause symptoms,
Yeah.
particularly some exhaustion and some brain fog. Stopped me in my
Mhm.
tracks. During that period of sort of self enforced rest, and I say self enforced because my body just basically shut down. I had some time to do some thinking, which was great. And I've shifted gears just a little bit in my business. And so my small brave move is really embracing that I am a strategic HR partner and
Ah.
that is work that I love to do and that I bundle that with leadership development and coaching. And so I
Mm.
developed my LPC method, leadership, people strategy, culture, and I'm going all in on that. That is going to be my method. That's how I do my work. I'm building an accelerator program for small business owners that believe
Mhm.
that that's a differentiator for their growing
Mhm.
business. And that is what I am going to be talking about like nonstop moving forward. Because I think that that's the magic right there.
I love that.
Yep.
That is powerful. So, for the listeners, I want you, if you could impart to them one small brave move you challenge them to think about as we close out this conversation, what's one piece of
Oh,
advice you'd give to them?
yeah. I think one small brave move that you can make is actually pause and do some reflection on what does leadership mean to you? What does being a leader actually mean? I don't think we spend time on that. I think
Mhm.
we get busy and we think we're doing it, but we don't pause and reflect. What does leadership mean to me?
Yeah,
So,
right.
that I think is a very brave move. It requires a great deal of self reflection, and it's actually a harder question than it sounds like.
I love that. What does leadership mean to you? And then you know what I'm envisioning the next step is do my actions, do everything I take action on align with
Bingo.
what that means, right?
Bingo.
And that's where some of the tension or some more crunchy
Or
conversations may happen,
and
right?
crunchy reflections because
Yes.
is that actually how I show up? Do I always if that's who I wanna be,
Mhm.
are my actions always aligned with that? And if the answer
Yeah.
is not a hell yes, then you got work to do.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Lindsay, you're amazing. High voltage leadership. They have all the
Thank
information to
you.
connect with you as well. Thank you so, so much for being an important part of our Small Brave Moves
Thank
podcast.
you.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Small Brave Moves podcast. If you're wanting to take this work even deeper, I'm here to help. From engaging in inspirational keynote speeches to transformational coaching and workshops for leaders and teams, page turning books, online courses, and enlightening leadership development retreats. There are so many ways that we can work together to take your leadership to the next level. For more information, check out the show notes and let's do this together. One small brave move at a time. See you next week.